almost all of the scholars that gave the first depictions of Islam in any colonized society, and by the way, that means Middle Eastern societies, that means everywhere. The academics that gave the first depictions of the way that Islam functioned were always people that were in the employ of the states that were dominating those societies. They were colonial administrators, period, full stop, without exception. If they were not working as colonial administrators, as Marti was, they were working under the auspices of colonial administrators. So that is to say that Islamic studies, as it exists in the academy, African history, African studies, anthropology itself, these things are all the handmaids of colonialism. They are part and parcel of how the world was divvied up by Europeans and governed. So we should not be surprised when we see racism hardwired into the way that they understood the world. So we have to approach these European sources with extreme caution, because they are harboring not just prejudices, but they are part of the active disenfranchisement of the societies that we're trying to study and that we're trying to understand, and that are either ancestral or spiritual, homes. So if we're going to honor our people, then we have to be very critical in the way that we approach colonial sources. And what I tell my graduate students all the time is that, listen, you have to take colonial sources with a grain of salt, because a lot of times the only reason why a white person writes something down on paper is to get a lie to hold as the truth. So a lot of the colonial archive, look, if I was stopped by the police 17 times in my 17th year in Minneapolis. My father was beaten by police in Washington, D.C. 3 times, and all of the police reports are exactly the same in each of the beatings. And the reason is that what happened does not matter. They are producing a report that is going to keep them from ever facing any consequences from beating my father. Every single report is the same. And so if you understand that colonial archives are essentially a series of police reports, then you have to know that you shouldn't trust them at face value in that way. You have to be critical in your approach to them. So a lot of academics will say, well, you can read between the lines of the colonizers' accounts in order to get the understandings of colonized people. And I'll be like, no, because here's the thing. You can get a colonial archive to tell you a story that it doesn't want to tell you, but you can't get it to tell you a story it doesn't know. You can't get it to tell you a story that it's never heard, because it doesn't speak that language, because it didn't sit with those people, because the categories in which that story was told do not correspond to the rationality of Europeans. So European sources of all kinds have to be countered by internal African sources, internal Islamic sources. And you have to use those to fact check on your European sources. And this became obvious to me with Paul Marti in one basic way. On the first page of his most authoritative report on Quran schooling, maybe not the first page, but in the early pages, he says the alphabet is taught in the invariable Oriental fashion, Aleph, Bet, Ta, Tha, Jim, Ha, Ha. And I remember reading this in the Senegalese National Archives, and I thought, this dude's either lying or he doesn't know what he's talking about. Because I had been visiting Quran schools for months, and what did I just say when the Mauritanian Quran teacher said when the kid comes to the school, he traces what letter? Ba. He doesn't start with Aleph. Nobody starts with Aleph, Bet, Ta, Tha when they teach Quran. They might start with Aleph, they might follow with Ba, but if they do, it's going to be Abjada, Hawaza, Hatta Yakalamana. They're going to teach it in the abjad order, not Aleph, Bet, Ta, Tha order. That doesn't exist. It didn't exist. It's used now sometimes so that people can use modern Arabic language dictionaries. But the way that the Quran was always taught, it was always taught either in the numerological value of the letters, which is Aleph, Bet, Jim, Dal, Abjad, Hawaza, or it's taught in the order that the letters appear in the Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ba, Sin, Mim, Aleph, Lam, Ha, Ra, Ha, Mim, Noon. You learn the letters in the order that you learn them in engaging the text. So if the most authoritative colonial expert on Quran schooling literally did not know the ABCs, if he literally did not know the alphabet of Quran schooling, how could I trust him on anything else? And this, I'll just be honest, anybody that knows me knows this. This just reconfirmed my lifelong suspicion of anything that white people have to say. So
Okay.
it's all good.
Okay.